Thank you for taking the time to speak with us. We're going to talk a little bit about this whole issue of why people don't vote. And I'm just kind of curious, what are the theories out there generally about why people don't vote?
Well, this has confronted a lot of scholars and practitioners of and politicians in terms of why people generally don't vote. And part of the reason is, and it can be multiple folds. Some have looked into political engagement and the disconnect between the voters and the issues, and also the disconnect between the voters and the candidates themselves. But basically, I like to refer to what Robert Reich said, that there's a threat to American democracy that exists. And in order for a democracy to fully function, it has to get the participation of its members and mostly its citizens and to participate. The biggest threat, according to Robert Reich, was that there was a lot of voter apathy. People did not care. Then there was a lot of voter resignation, or people that didn't think they could make a difference. And then also voter escapism, individuals who did not engage because they just avoided. And I think just looking at that basic kind of understanding, that approach, it kind of is telling of the direction of our society. Now, how we engage in our voters is going to make a difference going forward. I'm not sure there's a concerted effort to try to engage and make the political process easier. Remember, our same election and the same procedure of how we get individuals to register to vote, and how the voting process and also even the voting mechanisms are still very infantile in terms of the way that our country has developed. I don't know if there's any other institutions that has not changed with technology, that hasn't updated itself with the new impulse of what the young people are demanding, or just make it more simpler. I mean, we still have the same process in place that our ancestors had and our fathers had.
Can I just jump in here for a second? Because I said that to the city clerk, the Long Beach city clerk, and her response was, well, one of the ways that we make this easy for people is that they can vote from mail. They vote by mail. They can vote from the comfort of their home. So doesn't that make it easier for people?
Sure, but ask them when was the last time they sent something by mail. Ask individuals. When was I mean, guilty myself. I needed to send something off onto to one of the schools, and I put a 42-cent postage stamp, thinking that was what it was. And if my landlord didn't put my the forever stamp on my envelopes, I don't think my rent will get there, because I thought it was 42 cents, and I thought that was ample. And so the clerk at the post office laughed at me. She said, it's 49 cents now. So, I mean, yes, it's and again, how many of us get mail regularly, and how many do we use mail? I mean, as part of that also is a disengagement, because the students, my students particularly, they feel that there's a huge disconnect. They don't feel like they're being engaged. Nobody's coming to them to talk to them at their level. And this is where the process needs to somewhat be updated. And I don't know what the solution is, because we see more people voting for American Idol than we do for a lot of these candidates and a lot of these elected positions. And again, that's one of the we've looked into that, and we try to ascertain from anecdotal evidence of why people don't vote. And part of that is just surveying them and seeing how they feel. And right now, there seems to be a large majority of them that don't feel like that is something that it fits into their life. It's like almost an anachronism when it comes to texting, when it comes to instant email, Snapchat, and Instagram. and things that are easily accessible to them.
Right.
So I think that's part of it. The next part of it that probably will be worthy of discussion is in this idea of the political parties and how well they represent their value. And the students that I've seen, it's more or less, they tend to be liberals. So I've asked them how many of you feel that this particular party represents your value. And some of them will raise their hand, and some of them would wave their hands as if, sort of, kind of,
right.
And so as they're more politically maturing and it maturates and they can discern some of the issues, they become to see that the political parties sometimes may deviate from their sets of belief. So again, when there's a wide variety of political opinions, they see two political parties that are very static in their opposition for this, opposition for that, and these policies that may not impact them now or impact them very squarely, and yet they don't see other alternatives. And so
right.
the lack of having a political choice, and then they're resigned to with this understanding that either candidates they pick, they will probably be as good or as bad. So they don't see that the ability to discern what policies will be shifted, and they're through their own disillusion in what they see in government, and that they probably don't see too much of the good or bad. It's almost like right down the middle, and most of the times it's very static.
Let me jump in here, because one of the things that, as you talk about, and I'm trying to put myself in the place of younger voters, but this is probably also true for a lot of older voters. This whole disconnect, first of all, between themselves and the political parties as they are organized now, but also between them and the issues, and this idea that they either, even if they can identify with the issues, they can't identify with the solutions being offered for those issues. And part of it is a cynicism, I think, that has grown up, where which leads to this. Well, what good is it? Because nothing is going to change. I don't think they see government as a solution. They see government as part of the problem. Does that sound like Ronald Reagan? We've been talking about, disengagement of voters, but I wanted to add another layer to this engagement issue, which is the fact that there can be too many elections. In Long Beach, we just finished the local primary. There's at least one race where there's going to be a runoff in June. On top of that, June, you've got the state and federal primaries. There are going to be some local bond issues and local tax increase, sales tax increase, and then you're going to have the November election. And between now and then, you're going to be hearing from a lot of candidates and a lot of commercials. So does that also work against engagement when you just have all these things that are going on, and particularly some of it getting very negative?
And having more of these elections, but without addressing some of the issues of voter engagement, it just only exacerbates the issue. If the premise is, well, we want more people to engage, but there is a lower turnout, having more elections doesn't solve engagement. It actually makes it worse.
Right.
Then so it's the same people.
It just compounds the nerve wracking. So what you're saying basically is we've got to solve the very basic question about just engagement and how people engage before we start trying to even tackle all these other issues of how many elections and things like that.
Sure. I mean, I guess the election cycle is what it has to be. I mean, if we need a runoff, if we need a primary to determine through the election cycle, then we need to go through those steps. But again, it's making it easier for the individuals to vote. That might be one of the key ways. I mean, I know Alex Padilla our Secretary of State was traveling to Colorado to see how their voting engagement and what are ways to make voting easier. And so these are practical solutions that we can implement.
It seems like it's also a kind of a catch-22 here, because
yes,
you want to engage both new voters, and you want to maybe older voters who just have given up, but you don't make it easy to engage them, and you also create this kind of atmosphere of I'm really not interested in that new voter, because I've got my core group of people who want to vote for me. So I'm not going to do very much to engage people, because that's one of the things that came out of Tuesday's election. A bunch of comments were about what's the responsibility of the candidates to get people to come and vote, not just the people who signed up, for their email, but get people to come out and vote. Or are they just focused on, I just want to get, the people I know are going to come out and vote for me?
Strategically, that's probably the best way of doing it. You have a known quantity. You have, individuals that are your support. And, again, when you open the gateway, the gates to the floodgates, how good are you with weathering that storm that's to follow, the deluge that's to follow? And so it's a puzzle for most elected officials. Right. You need as many as the majority will sustain, but if you open up too much to the electorate, you may not be the candidate of their choice.
These lower voter participation rates, the disengagement, the frustration, all these things that we've been talking about, what is that? This is really, I guess, a big question, but what does that say about the future of our republic?
This is a really radical answer to your question. I don't think it does indicate any kind of moral failings or any kind of systemic failings, because there are other balances that are in play. Now, this is part of this we have seen, and when I talk to my students, we talked about these new social movements. What we're starting to see is that there are new ideas, new realities, and new ideologies, a new sense of culture that actually offsets some of our political our political push, and where they still, our republic and our government still creates these policies, there are also things in play, these narratives, the rights narrative, the non-discrimination narrative. There are all these issues that are already ingrained in our consciousness. And to give you an example, we've seen these laws that are being passed in the southern states regarding sexual orientation and protection of rights of individuals who have religious affiliation. But we can't seem to push those narratives beyond a certain level where it gets a backlash. Hollywood, say, or other companies and other firms are pushing back. They're boycotting. They're saying that no. Yes, you have gone through the institutions of lawmaking, but that's not going to be acceptable to us.
Right.
And so there's this ebb and flow of consciousness, and maybe this is something that I believe to be very hopeful for our society and our republic. Yes, that the way of governing is very different from than it was a few decades and a few centuries ago.
Right.
I think with the political access and the ability to make governing decisions isn't solely resting upon the individuals in power at the halls of in Congress or in the presidency. Our institutions are being defined, and our ideas and our cultural affiliation and our new perceptions of what is right and wrong is permeating within the society. There was a few years ago, using the political system and the process, there was Proposition 8.
Right.
But then that can't be the sole indicator of what the path that our society is going through. The arc of our beliefs and our core beliefs and the nature of who we are is extended beyond the political arena.
Right.
And government is now reacting to the culture.
Right. Right. So
where before government was shaping the culture.
Let me just jump in because I need to wrap this up. But I think what you're saying is is that there's the ballot box, but there's a lot of other things, other layers of engagement that, whether it's people at the local level, whether it's people through the way of culture, through our society, that there's a lot of things that are impacting the way we swing government and we swing society. And I think appreciate that. Thank you very much for talking to me.
Thank you very much.